looks like the players are ready to go as Fr0zen and Nalguidan are loading into their first game momentarily, and then we'll be able to find out who will be joining us alongside Eddie in the semifinals for Sunday. Tomorrow's broadcast is going to be a repeat in terms of the structure. For today, we're going to play the group stages on the other side of the brackets for seeds 1 through 4, and then find out who is going to be getting those 2 spots per region for Europe and Americas. And then on Sunday, we're just going to have the 2 semifinals and the finals, copy-paste. And then we'll have the 2 players joining us for the global finals at BlizzCon 2019.
Yep, it's all been a very long road, and BlizzCon is the ultimate goal for all of these players. They are very, very close, everyone that you have seen today and everyone that you will see tomorrow, but they're still a couple of steps away. And you can see now that the picks and bans are in. Just down there, you can see that little Divine Shield bubble is the protected class from each of the players. Fr0zen has gone ahead and protected his Shaman, this America's build of Shaman with that single copy of Spirit of the Frog in there, not the quest variation that we've been seeing more commonly today. Nalguidan on his side has chosen to protect his Malagos Druid while banning away the Priest from Fr0zen. And as I kind of predicted just before we cut away for a little break, I do respect seeing that Hunter go down because I think it is a deck that can give Fr0zen's lineups a whole lot of problems.
Yes, the pressure plans really give combo decks that need to draw cards not a lot of time to do so. Feels like a very appropriate ban there. On the other end, last time we saw Nalguidan, he was protecting Malagos Druid and also banning things like Quest Shaman. So seems like he has a flexible ban spot that adapts based on what his opponents are doing. Can never really be too upset at a Priest ban. I usually think that tends to be pretty good. Although earlier today, Monsanto was kind of lamenting his loss on Twitter, and Purple was giving him advice to not ban Priest.
Yes,
which I found hard to read because you never really know when you're talking with Purple if he's being sarcastic or actually just telling you what you should be doing.
I love Purple because Purple is so smart and so quick on his feet that he can justify any position even if he's well aware that he's in the wrong, which I think is pretty fantastic. And he also uses that power for both good and evil in various times. So you are exactly right. You don't know where you stand, but I do think it was genuine advice. And also, interestingly, I don't know if you saw, Monsanto replied to that and said, I can justify it when this is all over. Kind of saying, like, I'm not going to reveal what my strategy is going into this, but, like, this makes sense. I will tell you why later. So I'm looking forward to seeing that develop, honestly.
Yeah, and I guess Monsanto will have all off-season to think about it and justify it to Purple as he was eliminated in the lower bracket.
Savagery! I know we've got a Druid game, but you don't have to be casting Savagery everywhere, Fr0zen. Come on!
Someone's got to play that card. Going into game number 1, Fr0zen with the Overload Evolve Shaman with the opportunity to really add the pain with this Thunderhead. Having played a handful of this deck, I actually haven't queued into any Druids, surprisingly. So based off your experience, how do you feel like it's gone?
Pretty well, honestly. I do think this deck is a little bit more all-in the Druid matchup than the Quest variation, but the majority of it functions just the same in that if you can get an early Thunderhead or an early Desert Hare backed up with the payoff card that goes along with it, i.e. Overload cards in the case of the former or an Evolve in the case of the latter, that represents so much damage early that the Druid is likely just scrambling to not die throughout most of turn 5 and turn 6.
Interesting. Yeah, Fr0zen was playing to get this Thunderhead out ASAP.
Yep.
And it seems like Nalguidan is able to escape by getting 2 cards off this Crystal Merchant. Nalguidan seems to be in high spirits, even bopping his head.
So this now means that Fr0zen can generate a full board on the next turn for 2 mana, then play a Mogu Flesh Shaper alongside that for 1 mana, trade something off, and then spend his final point of mana on a Witchy Lackey to evolve his Mogu Flesh Shaper next turn, which is kind of absurd when you think about the amount of stuff he can actually do with 4 mana next turn.
And now much for Nalguidan to do in this spot, although I do anticipate this potentially being a matchup where he may have to dump cards like Moonfire eventually in suboptimal positions. The deck tends to be pretty aggressive. The Evolve Shaman, that is.
Yes.
So a lot of times you're going to have to part ways and kind of piece together a win condition spontaneously. And this kind of pressure coming in with Mogu Flesh Shaper.
Yep. Pretty sure I described this accurately. You can see this Mogu getting incredibly cheap already. He'd love to be able to potentially play it for 0 here and be able to load up Soul of the Murlocs as well alongside that Witchy Lackey, but I guess he's one off the absolute dream scenario. Unlucky Fr0zen. Just have to make do with this enormous board and this 8-drop that he's about to generate.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if he is going to commit to the Witchy Lackey or the Soul of the Murloc. Soul of the Murloc just feels really good against his opponent's AoE.
I do like going for the Lackey because your small tokens aren't the most relevant thing without a Bloodlust in your hand.
Sure.
I think getting a big minion here that is out of range of Starfall some of the time, like 8 health is such a big deal when you hit this evolve. Like that can honestly be matchup deciding a lot of the time if you get a minion that has 8 health and can't be Starfalled away. The breakpoints are slightly different though, it's worth saying, against Malagos Druid because they can often, if they have a Starfall, just add a Moonfire to that as well to take care of most 8-drops in that scenario.
Yep, Nalguidan has to let this quest complete. Whoa. And now Fr0zen can utilize Soul of the Murloc. Whoa.
Yeah, I kind of like the 8/8 quite a lot better.
That looks much better. I mean, now Starfall and Moonfire are required, and even then doesn't deal with the 6/6 and the 3/6. This is really bad for Nalguidan.
Didn't play around crushing walls though, rookie mistake.
You're right. Yeah, desperate times calls for desperate measures. We kind of talked about how you're going to have to use Moonfire.
I wonder in that situation whether taking 2 extra attack off the board is worth the price of a Moonfire from your deck, especially when you already have Malagos in hand, like that can be used as like a tempo swing if you make it that far.
Yeah.
Could have just chosen to kill the 6/6 and left the 8/6 as it would then be remaining in play. But I think still very justifiable line from Nalguidan.
Yeah, I mean, I think his hand is awkward enough where he's going to need a series of miraculous draws in order to pull him out.
And this Bloodlust for Fr0zen was also a very miraculous draw, because this means now this Soul of the Murloc represents lethal on any given turn. Nalguidan is going to have to double clear the board to be able to stay alive through this Bloodlust turn coming out. Full board with Death Rattle.
Even that heal, just adding a little bit more difficulty for Nalguidan to clear.
I think Nalguidan might just be a little bit ahead of us as he reacted slightly early to that Soul of the Murlocs coming down from our perspective. I imagine that is what caused the reaction. And he doesn't have 1 board clear in hand right now, let alone 2. Even if there were 2, like, look at Fr0zen's refill. Like, he can still keep going here, even if this board does get sent down.
Yeah, Nalguidan needs 2 Nubisat defenders.
He only plays 1.
Yes, he needs to somehow reach into the My Collection tab and find a way to put a second one in. But this is looking death even without the Bloodlust. War Druid Lodi can come out along with Moonfire and Pounce, and that's it.
What to do?
Is a great question, Malfurion.
I guess in his mind, is he alive if he just eliminates some of the power on board here? I think so.
So you'd want to run Loti into the 4/5,
Yeah.
I guess, to preserve the Taunt would be the best way of doing that.
Right. If he can get a Nubisat defender.
Sure, yeah, okay, seems reasonable.
It's not good enough. Fr0zen off to a quick 1-0 victory. Nabar has called this out at the start of the day, and it might be a premonition for the weekend. Is Druid a liability in people's lineups? And it's starting to look like to be the case here. Even though Druid, specifically Malagos Druid, is even well equipped against certain decks, I feel like with Priest still being a thing, Shaman getting even stronger, and even like all these other decks that normally Druid can overpower with like Oasis Surger, with like the threat of N'Zoth and all these other decks being able to go toe-to-toe for big boards to answer that wide stuff from Druid, it feels like it's just lost a lot of its real punch.
I think, yeah, Abar has shown up today and said a lot of very smart things. You know, he said that he favors this Token Shaman build over the Quest Shaman build. It does seem, based on our small sample size, that this has been the more successful deck in the games that we've seen. He says that Druid might be a liability, and we've seen Druid perform quite poorly for the players that run it. I think you can see there's a reason why I gave him so much credit at the start of the day and said that he's often the guy feeding us a lot of the smart things that we have to say on broadcast when he's behind the scenes pulling the levers.
Well, I mean, Nalguidan doesn't have that hunter to rely upon now, so he still has his druid, still has his shaman, still has his priest. Very interesting indeed. You know, how does Fr0zen really go into it? We haven't actually seen too much of the control warrior, but like we said, he's bringing the Mech-Cthulhu warrior, and I'm wondering if that's going to come out here. Doesn't look to be the case. Fr0zen going with the Holy Wrath Paladin.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to say it before the graphic spoilers, but I would have expected to see the Holy Wrath Paladin come out. I don't know how different the matchup is against this build of Shaman, you know, the Sea Giant Bloodlust Shaman, than it is against Quest Shaman, but of course you would always take your Holy Wrath Paladin into a Quest Shaman. I think even these days, with the addition of the Desert Hare and Evolve, I think Holy Wrath Paladin players will still enjoy that matchup from their side, as we saw previously in Fr0zen series, so no surprise to me to see that one coming out. No surprise to me to see Nalguidan responding with this Malygos Druid again, because I think it's just the best matchup he has in the situation.
Yep, it was the deck that he was getting the wins with in the start of the day, the Malygos Druid against OTK Paladin from Monsanto. And we saw that Druid just had a lot of great tools. Kun the Forgotten King. We saw it with the Ferocious Howls. So if Nalguidan can keep up that kind of pace as he did in the beginning of Americas, he'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, certainly will. This has the double threat, this deck, in terms of being able to outlast the Paladin if it gets to Elise and then is able to duplicate multiple healing effects or multiple armor gain effects. You know, get a one mana Kun in your hand from a Geppetto and then start duplicating that with your Elise. You can gain ridiculous amounts of armor ridiculously quickly. Alternatively, do the same thing, get towards the end of your deck, draw your Malygos, set up some kind of duplication in your hand that just leaves you with game-ending damage in hand. So essentially, Fr0zen would have to time out every turn for the rest of the game to stay alive, which is not often something that they can do. The key to both of those plans, though, is drawing cards very, very quickly from Nalguidan's side. He does have that Nourish in hand, does have that Crystal Merchant in hand, so it looks like he is going to get off to a very, very rapid start with the card draw.
Yeah, you want to be able to get that card draw going as soon as possible. So much so that I've seen people coin out the Crystal Merchant.
Behold, jewels of the sound.
So they can squeeze in just a little bit extra damage.
Yeah, similar thing here from Nalguidan, right? Where he holds onto his coin on turn 1 and then uses it on turn 2 with the Crystal Merchant, so he draws that card 1 turn quicker. I think it's a nice thought in this matchup as well because of the threat of specifically True Silver Champion. Means that this gets into play 1 turn, an extra buffer turn between you playing your Crystal Merchant and the True Silver Champion coming down.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I've seen some players, they coin out the Crystal Merchant, then play the quest.
Right.
That's the way they can get ahead of any, like, 1/1s,
right.
Or at least squeezing that 1 damage. I don't think this is a matchup that's determined by an extra damage push or having board presence early for the Druid. It's largely predicated on how quickly they can draw the cards, and that's where you're talking about. The Nourish is going to be the key card, I think.
Yes.
Here for Nalguidan. True Silver shutting down the Crystal Merchant, but she already sold 2 cards. And Malfurion got a great deal off of that. Ooh, Ferocious Howl. Now, Nalguidan doesn't really need 2 Ferocious Howls then.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we've talked about this a lot. Admirable and I had some extensive arguments about this on the Euro broadcast, where I think the reason you play 2 Ferocious Howls, yes, you play 2 because you want to draw 1 very often in this matchup, but by playing 2, you allow the first one to be castable. because yes, it gains armor, but it also draws a card, and that's equally important to fulfilling your win condition. So being able to dig deeper, dig all the way through, get your Elise active, and then hopefully find that second copy of Ferocious Howl, especially now that Kun the Forgotten King is in the deck, because now suddenly Ferocious Howl isn't your only win condition when it comes to duplicating an armor gain card.
Well said. Now, Nalguidan using Innervate to finish the quest while also developing support presence. I like this. I think, if anything, it's like a good nod to what has happened earlier this season, where Nalguidan actually had hand space issue, nourished, and burned a really valuable card.
Yes, I think the Nourish in hand is a big influence on Nalguidan making this play. You can see, based on his hand size now, he will go up to 8 cards next turn. Meaning Nourish is immediately castable. He'll cast Nourish, go down to 7, and then go up to 10, and he'll just have to play another card to avoid overdrawing after that.
Let me
Fr0zen has none of the cards that he's going to discount for his combo pieces, at least directly. If he discounts Prismatic Lens, maybe that ends up getting a discounted Holy Wrath. But at the same time, Emperor Thorstein forces a reaction from Nalguidan. He has to specifically have a Nourish into a Wrath if you want to deal with it and get his optimal turn. Yeah, Nalguidan instantly does.
I think that's the thinking here. I think Nalguidan turned a lot of his hand face up that turn. I think, you know, as much as I can point that out seeing the cards, Fr0zen is so good that he will recognize what's happening without seeing the cards. It's like, wait, why did my opponent play 2 3/3s and Innervate last turn? Oh, okay, he wants to make hand space for Nourish. Well, if he's going to Nourish, well, in that case, I want to have a 5/5 on the board that could potentially hit into this armor total and help me achieve my win condition.
Very nice pickup. A Nubisat Defender as well.
The one of a Nubisat Defender, which is not even a rabbit hole I've gone down right now, but it's a lot of cards I would cut from Druid before I cut in a Nubisat Defender.
Yeah, it's actually the highest win rate card, I think, in Quest Druid consistently across all variants, even the Quest Malygos Druid.
Right.
Largely because free cards are really good. And I think historically, some of the most powerful cards in history have been free cards. You're talking about Corridor Creeper. You're talking about Arcane Tyrant. You're talking about Patches. Like, free cards are just insane.
Mogu Flesh Shaper.
Mogu Flesh Shaper. Sea Giant.
Wisp. You kidding me?
Infinite value. It's just generally really, really powerful, and it also just helps tie in Druid's game plan really well because you generally take a big beating, and you need these Nubisat Defenders often to bail you out.
Yeah. I love that when that argument comes up, the one all people always bring up is like, well, what about Totemic Might? That's never been broken. It absolutely was. Like, Wicked Witch Doctor Shaman was one of the best decks in the game, only for a little while because people discovered it really late and then the next expansion came along. Yeah. But that deck was so insane.
Uh-oh, Fr0zen very stressed. There's a very easy way for this game to just be over instantly.
And it will not be the first time we've seen it happen today, if it does happen. It wasn't the Shivala, particularly in Monsanto's series just up last, but he did burn a copy of Holy Wrath against Warrior, which made the game borderline unwinnable for him from that position.
There's 12 cards in the deck, and 3 of them are painful burns. One of them being excruciatingly painful.
Jewels of the Sun.
Still unlikely, though.
Hold your breath. All right, it's a good card in the matchup, but it's not game-ending.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you were to look at things he would burn, that is something that I think he's okay with parting ways with.
Absolutely.
Let me think. Let the pain speak to me.
One shot, one.
Fr0zen with this Acolyte draw already down to 10 cards remaining in deck, so he's making very nice progress through this deck.
Clever usage to make the Acolyte only draw 1 card when he's at 8 cards.
But Nalguidan outdrawing the Paladin. He's down to 9 cards remaining compared to Fr0zen's 10, and you can see that Elise already active, but you can see again, similar thing to what I was talking about, the Ferocious Howl just getting used here. Nalguidan does not feel like he needs to mess around duplicating it here. He's in a comfortable enough position, and I think it's also easy to focus too much on the fatigue, out-heal game plan with Malygos Druid. I think, you know, Quest Druid, looks to pressure and looks to out-heal, whichever route the matchup takes them. Malagos Druid looks to out-heal, or another very viable strategy is just to burst your opponent out of the game, which is what the deck is built to do in the majority of matchups. And when you're sat with the Malagos on the far left of your hand in prime duplication position, it's got to be something that you're thinking about. And there is that Kun now. That is 20 more armor gain potential for Nalguidan if he takes an Elise turn. It's also just an insane amount of tempo if Nalguidan wants to push out onto the board.
Yeah, Fr0zen trying to rush now into terms of his own card draw. He has 2 other sources just this turn, at the very least. Finds Zephyrus. Sorry, not finds Zephyrus. Finds a Baleful Banker number 2, which activates his Zephyrus.
I knew what you meant. I was going to let it slide.
Finds Zephyrus' activator.
Yeah, there you go. If you trail off with enough conviction, no one's going to look twice at it. Don't worry.
All right. Well, the problem is Kun's on the far right side of the hand. Nalguidan actually has a very interesting potential way you can map it out too. Like, what happens if he plays just Malagos right here, and then has a Floop setup? I don't think that's necessarily something he can necessarily entertain right now. It is interesting to think about, though.
It is.
Subdue was just used too, right?
Yeah, well, Subdue was the card that was burned from Fr0zen's side.
Right.
So yeah, it's something that I talked about in one of the previous series as well, where the Paladin really looks for specific signals from the Druid to start really thinking about, well, damn, I have to play a timeout now this turn. And, you know, a Malagos just being played onto the board is one of those possible signals, because you know then suddenly huge amounts of damage are possible with a discounted Malagos and swipes and Moonfires coming out on the following turn. So depending on how high your health total is, you do have to start respecting the idea of just playing a timeout when your opponent's board is even just empty, which is a horrible thing to have to do.
5 cards in the deck here for Fr0zen.
Your wish is my suggestion.
With 9 cards also. Looks like the Tyrion will be set up.
No weapon destruction in Druid, so that 15 damage is usually quite bankable. The Druid player can choose to respond with a Zephyrus of their own to go for a Acidic Swamp Ooze or even a Tyrion of their own to then wall out some of that damage so it can't be swung face, but most commonly an Ooze. But that's about the only way they have of preventing that damage going through.
I wonder.
I think I kind of like using a Swipe and a Starfall here. Kind of crowds or moves some of the cards that are crowding out the hand.
I agree.
Let you push a lot of damage, honestly.
Yep. Swipe face, Starfall minion, you are dealing 15 this turn. Seems good to me.
What to do?
I'm actually starting to wonder if there's even a potential other secret play.
What is the secret play?
Secret play would be like something like Kun into or Druid Lodi into Elise and like Moonfire 4 times type of situation, but I don't think it's
3 damage per Moonfire with the 2 Lotis.
Yeah.
I like where your head's at.
You gotta think about that stuff.
Yeah.
There's like some forbidden lethals that you can spot.
Yeah.
In the end, I don't think it does anything but get down to single digits anyways. Like instead of 9 health, maybe it would be like 6. So I didn't feel like there was actual anything there. Fr0zen has timeout.
Like my invention.
Still no Shirvala. There's 3 cards in the deck.
Oh.
Whoo. Decision-making time. 3 cards are left with 2 Holy Rats and an Ashbringer up.
Crucially, there's 5 cards remaining in Nalguidan's deck, so also Fr0zen will be considering that it's very likely that Kun is drawn, it's very likely that Elise is active, it's very likely that Elise has been drawn. All of those statements are true individually. When you say all of those 3 statements all have to be true for it to be a really horrible situation for you, that's significantly less likely as the 25 does land. Nalguidan can only gain 10 in the immediacy on the next turn. That's not true. He has Floop available. so he does have the ability to pull way out of range of this still.
Fr0zen probably has to still rip the time out. He can't take this damage. He can swing with the Ashbringer. The second time out, though. And now Nalguidan has to figure out a way to gain the most life. He's at 26 after the Kun. But he does get the opportunity to play it again with the Flute.
Yep.
And that's probably the key. That 20 armor, as you were mentioning. And I think he'll be good with burst damage, because with...
He can Elise here first and still preserve a copy of the Flute Kun in his hand.
You right?
And then just replay that Kun afterwards to then reset the other Flute away from being the Elise and back to being Kun again.
Correct. That's a very specific, nuanced interaction. And the way the hand shaped up is perfect, because he's also going to ditch the second copy of Geppetto.
Is it? That one on the right, that was copied in its original state from when the Elise is played, and then the original one picks up the Elise form from it being played. So now that one gets played, refreshes the mana crystals, and the other Floop is now back to being Kun again, and Nalguidan can just go through the motions one more time if he really, really wants to. I'll just play a Malakos, sure, that works too.
Sure. Zephyrus was used, right?
Yeah, and the timeouts have been used as well, so now he has potential to just, you know, Mally swipe triple Moonfire from hand on the following turn.
And no equality from Fr0zen to pick up, so he has to spend at least 2 mana to draw it.
Like you said, Zephyrus used, so the 25 damage plus this one Ashbringer swing is the most that Fr0zen has available. So I think Nalguidan decides I want to set up a win condition from hand for myself to end the game, more than I need 10 extra armor right now.
Right, and now Fr0zen needs to play this quality. He needs to Crystal Smith Kangor and Shirvala? Pretty sure he does. He should know that Nalguidan's basically decked out and ready to kill him, especially with an Elise.
Nalguidan has 27 next turn from an empty board, I believe. 20, plus 5 to each of the spells, so that's 20. 3 Moonfires, 23. 1 swipe, 27.
I must move quickly. It's time to test true metal.
16 is not going to cut it, I'm afraid.
He killed his own Shirvala!
Oh, no!
Oh, yikes. All right.
Well,
He lost anyways.
Yes.
But definitely a very embarrassing way to end that game.
yes, that was a huge mess of a last turn. As you mentioned, likely nothing he was going to do, or certainly nothing that he did that turn was going to get him out of range because of the 27 damage set up from hand from Nalguidan. I think that was actually a good spot from Nalguidan as well. We were rightly just getting excited about how much armor you could gain in one turn because that's sweet. But I think recognizing, okay, my opponent has used all of his timeouts. My opponent has not used all of his board clears. So what's going to happen this turn? My board is going to get cleared, and he's not going to play a timeout. Therefore, if I just put 27 damage in my hand, the game ends. And I think that is a very, very smart way of looking at it from Nalguidan.
Exactly. The armor gain for the Paladin isn't really what their strong suit is without High Priest to call. Therefore, bursting them out of the game is very much a viable thing. And partially why we considered, in the mid-season when the Malagos Druid was starting to get popular, why we considered to be a favorite over the Holy Wrath Paladin. As mentioned by a few other people, like Saiyan, who's trying to talk about why this deck was really good bring for weeks number 3 to 4. Now, going to the final game here, Fr0zen seems to be, heavily favoring things like this Holy Wrath Paladin. Is he going to queue it one more time against the Priest or the Shaman? You seem to think so, but if Nalguidan thinks that, what's his best queue against a Paladin?
That is an excellent question, and I will confess that I do not know with enough certainty how good this Shaman deck in comparison to Quest Shaman is against Holy Wrath Paladin. Like, I imagine it gains edge because it's slightly more aggressive. It has powerful starts, and it has Lickum and Lightning Bolt and damage that can go face and pressure that it can put on the opponent, and it plays the card Bloodlust. So no board can ever be ignored. I think that's one of the biggest advantages that Holy Wrath Paladin has against Shaman, is sometimes it can just ignore a board that's just 5 or 6 minions that have 1 or 2 attack and just say, I will tank this for a turn or 2 and just board lock you. You absolutely do not have that luxury against this Bloodlust Shaman from coming out from Fr0zen. So I expect it is better in the matchup. I can't tell you with enough certainty to say, like, this is the queue, because I just do not have enough experience in the matchup in the new metagame.
All right, well, I'll go look that up then in the meantime. But Fr0zen will be on this Holy Wrath Paladin as we expected. And then the big reveal, which I'm anticipating it most likely is the Priest, given that I feel like Priest has the capability of just sneaking in that win anyways. Yep. And also, I feel like Priest does this very interesting thing of like forcing the Paladin to just play tighter because they have less room for mistake, because I think one slip of a misread of a hand or being a little too greedy is just like an instant punish.
Yes.
Versus Shaman's kind of like the slow accrual of resources, and eventually you kind of see what's happening. Oh wait, he's holding like 3 lackeys for like 5 turns. There's got to be combo damage coming in.
Sure. I do think that this is a very playable match for the Paladin, but I will defend to the death the idea that it is Priest favored, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is that if the Paladin wins this matchup, they very rarely are able to do it without a turn where they could have been dead to the right turn. Right? There's always one turn we're like, well, if he has Divine Inner, I guess I'm just dead this turn, but I can't afford to play a timeout here. That's ridiculous. And I think in that situation where the Priest just always has those opportunities to just scam free wins by having the right, collection of 3 cards in their hand, and that I'm always going to call it Priest favored, but it is definitely a competitive matchup from the Shaman side. Well, sorry, from the Paladin side.
Well, based off of just the last few days here, according to some of the publicly available data out there on HS Replay, it's a pretty even matchup versus Quest Shaman, while slightly losing one versus Combo Priest. So
Paladin is slightly unfavored against Combo Priest?
Slightly, by like 1 or 2%.
Okay.
But like Shaman's almost dead even.
Yes. I am just now realizing I had this backwards as well. I was looking at Fr0zen's deck list when I was talking about Shaman, and of course Nalguidan is playing the Quest Shaman and not the Token Shaman that I was talking about this entire time. So with that in mind, this does surprise me, that I think Paladin would be the go-to queue for Fr0zen. I think we both predicted that. And with that in mind, I am very surprised to see this Shaman coming out from Nalguidan.
Because against aggro Overload Shaman, it's a losing match for Shaman.
Right, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, because it's just too fast. And Fr0zen does get a little bit extra time because of that slow upstart on the quest. Although, that helps. Questing Explorer.
Right,
so good, you want to see it twice. So good, you want to see it twice.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Just as a tempo 3-2, sometimes the Bloodfin Raptor is what you need to get done, and having stats on the board, even without the effect, is good enough.
Yep, with no True Silver in hand, I think Fr0zen understands that 2-3 would represent 2, 4, 6, sometimes 8 damage coming through to the face. So I think playing the Zephyrus there was very responsible to cut into that. What's the point in taking Zephyrus to heal for 8 later on if you can use it to take 8 damage off the board? But the Rush Lackey comes out to prevent that and shut it down.
And now he has a Bog Slosher opportunity to Bog Slosh and play the Goblin
Mortals are so squishy.
Okay. Nalguidan goes for a Mogu Flesh Shaper, holds onto the Bog Slosher for options. Also, by playing the Mogu Flesh Shaper, I don't know if that actually makes it necessarily better for Desert Hare Evolve if he did top deck it next turn, because Desert Hare also discounts Mogu Flesh Shaper like crazy.
Yes, absolutely. You pay 3 for it, and it discounts Mogu by 3, so it's essentially free just to hold on to it and do it in the other order. This does surprise me. I'm a little confused as to why you want to spend 4 mana on a card that you could spend far less on. When you could have spent 4 on things that always cost 4, like Bog Slosh and the Rush Lackey, as you were talking about, and puts 3 3/3s or 2 3/3s and a 2/3 into play.
Just outside the range of Consecration.
Yes.
One shot, one kill.
Did look stronger to me.
You can see the intensity for both players, finagling with their foreheads, trying to tap into their brain power.
Is that how you do it? You just play with your hair? Oh, okay, I understand now.
Just keep the thoughts in, you know? You don't want the brain cells leaving.
Right.
But, yeah, it's an entire season's worth of work on the line here. Only one game will determine who goes to play on Championship Sunday.
It's the right way.
Nalguidan almost done with his quest.
Yep.
5 out of 6.
Yes, and in the interest of fairness, he does get a very nice payout out of that Bog Slosher, getting the Questing Explorer back to hand, drawing another card with it before that quest is completed.
Yeah.
Coming down on board, healing it from a 2-1 even to bring it down then as a Yeti.
And now Fr0zen has to weigh his own mana efficiency at this point. Is it worth taking that damage, that 7 that you're staring down, to cast card draw? Or perhaps instead, he wants to reduce the amount of damage being done through Shrink Ray. And I think this is a really hard decision to make for Fr0zen because it's so appealing to just keep drawing cards whenever you can. But you have to stop any kind of Shaman aggression.
Yes. Micro details as well. You see Fr0zen there choosing to trade into the Bog Slosher instead of the Questing Explorer because even though they are shrunk to 1/1s, Bog Slosher costs 3, Questing Adventurer costs 2. The Questing Explorer, sorry, costs 2, which means...
does cost 3.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I got confused. I was like, hang on, I guess I just made a fairly accurate statement. Which means if Evolve comes down to finish out this mess of a point, and then you want to have killed a more expensive minion on board.
All this investment into mana, 2 consecrations of Shrink Ray, and a Crystology so far. That's 14 mana. Shivala costs 11. Fairly important because Shaman does have trouble dealing with Shivala boards too in some Hail Mary scenarios. Mana Reservoir, that's not what Nalguidan's looking for.
I hope you like my invention.
Ooh. That Evolve now, though, does start to represent some of that much-needed pressure that Nalguidan has been looking for. Fr0zen sat on a fairly slow-looking hand right now, although a nice, cheap second Prismatic Lens is going to have something to say about that.
Really big if you can pick up Timeout. Oh, that's not exactly the card I was thinking that pair with Timeout.
Oh, it is a 0-cost Shivala, though. Oh, look on the bright side.
But he just casted 6 mana. Shivala was down to 5. It was likely that Shivala would have been free the next turn.
Oh, did it cost 5 already?
Yeah, with Shrink Ray.
16, 17. Yeah, wow. Wow, okay.
Actually, even costed less. I forgot about the 2 mana Prismatic Lens. So, Shivala was already very cheap.
Fair enough.
And also, Fr0zen uses Consecrations.
Yep. He's 1 Pyromancer as well. I think you're right. I think he was kind of leaning on timeouts this game, the way that he was forced to use removal early.
I hope you like my invention.
Crystal Smith Kangor and Choose Over Champion.
It's time to test your metal.
Doesn't have enough mana for all of it.
Yep, that Shivala's got to go back in the deck. Let's not make that mistake twice in the same series, Fr0zen.
Let's stash that away.
Probably just not. I guess Mind Control Tech isn't really that big of a threat, to be honest.
Only 1 copy in Nalguidan's deck as well. It is one of the cards that has been falling by the wayside to make room for these Evolves and these Desert Hares, alongside former champs. And in some cases, 1 copy of Mutate as well. And Nalguidan is one of those cases, only playing a single copy.
The heal back to 30. But Nalguidan has lots of damage potentially lined up here. 2 life drinks in hand with a Sludge Slurper available.
Yep.
I like, with Shudderwalk in hand, I like to start investing into some of it too. Your opponent also demonstrated an ability to clear the board. I'd like to go wide here. Not that wide. Well, I guess I would like to also evolve. That's just true.
I was gonna say, do you want to do something that isn't this? Because this looks like the thing to me.
I will not be rushed.
Yes, I do want life drinkers. That's cool, but I guess this is also a lot of damage, so.
Hench Clan, Shade Quill, a blessing and a curse. Huge minion in terms of stats, in terms of pressure. It does have that downside if Fr0zen can time it well enough in his favor.
It's looking a little dicey, to say the least. 5,
I wonder.
6, 11, 13, 17, 20, 23 damage on the board. Another timeout.
Wait, that Shivala cost 5 when it was drawn. We miscounted somewhere along the line.
It was 5. I thought it got discounted by 2 more, but it was 5.
Okay, so it was 5.
I hope you like my invention.
I counted the prismatic lens at full cost. At 2
I understand.
Instead of
Gotcha. You paid 4 for 1 and 2 for 1.
So, how much damage is this? 10 on the right side, 9 on the other. There's only some way to get a minion off the board and life drinker.
Yep.
Super close to killing him. But not enough board space.
Crucial how far along we are for Fr0zen here. Still 8 cards remaining before he has any kind of guaranteed setup. That is so far away for Fr0zen right now. It's about to hit turn 10 and he still has 8 cards remaining in his deck. You have to call that a pretty slow game on the side of the Holy Wrath Paladin.
The only thing about this trade is that Nalguidan, if his board gets cleared, does not have a setup for a life drinker kill, but I guess he didn't either because the Shade Quill already had existed.
Yes.
I
Yeah, if the board
wonder.
lives, he wins. If the board dies, Life Drinker isn't immediately lethal anyway because the healing will go over to Fr0zen. I think that makes sense.
Is this a moment where Fr0zen has to time out? I guess he doesn't really have much of a choice.
Emperor timeout. He's going to need a turn to get this True Silver in play as well because he needs that damage to go face to be game ending.
He could pull it off, right? If he discounts everything, Shivala, Baleful Banker costs 1. Holy Wrath and True Silver costs 7.
I must move
So
quickly.
it's 29.
By the power of Ragnarok.
478, yeah, sure.
Fr0zen's season is on the line here. With only 1 game remaining to determine who is getting that final semifinal spot for day number 1.
I think Fr0zen is going to find himself in a position where he has to bet it on a 1 in X in this game, whether it's next turn or the turn after. I don't think he's getting much better odds than like a 25%er this game.
For my glory.
What's the best setup here for Nalguidan? He also has Arcane Fletcher, which is pretty funny. Whenever he plays a 1 mana cost minion, he draws a spell from his deck. Pretty hilarious. He's trading in the Fletcher. Aww. After all the hype we were just about to build up for it.
Right. So Fr0zen still has a Pyromancer remaining. That's the one card that I think could give him some extended time in this game. Because it allows him to get the full board clear and pick up some much needed healing in the situation.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think he's in trouble.
Oh.
Okay. So you're saying
Well.
there's a chance.
Yeah. And the 3 lackeys in hand are so scary for Fr0zen because he knows about them. He might not have a choice, though.
Let me think.
Do you like to play with fire?
Rips the Holy Wrath number 1.
Now, Shivala Baleful Banker, or no? Is he okay with 13 and 2 showing? It means he's safe from Cobalt Lackey, Life Drinker by itself,
Yeah.
because that is 10 damage.
It's also the question of just whether he wants a 7-5 in play this turn, regardless of the healing that he comes down to.
And Nalguidan does not have any of those damage lags, but has Life Drinker and has Shudderwalk. Shudderwalk would only put 1 Life Drinker in, right?
And a Sludge Slurper in hand as well, right here as well. There are lethal outs.
Hand space to get them.
Yes, he does. There's 1. Okay. So now Life Drinker and Kobold Lackey will cost him 5, which means he has 1 mana to spend on a spell after this Ethereal Lackey, and he needs 3 damage. Only there was a Shaman spell that did 3 damage for 1 mana, Dan.
Farsight? Wind Fury? No, it's 1 mana. He needs 1 mana minions or 1 mana buffs.
It's got to be a Lightning Bolt.
Or a Frost Shock.
What?
He still has the Life Drinker, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then the 2 attack.
Oh, the 2-1 hasn't attacked yet. Okay.
That's what I was thinking. The Wind Fury, but it's
I'm
1
the
mana
one that's
off.
crazy. Okay, fair enough.
Mortals are so squishy.
He's getting the Wind
He's just
Fury.
Wind Furying the Harvest God, the damaged Golem. Get in there, little buddy. I value you. You attack twice.
Oh, wow. The dream. There's 4 cards remaining in the deck here.
Go time. I said it seemed unlikely he'd find a better chance than a 25%er.
He can Flash of Light too? Can he do all that? Yes?
No?
No, not enough mana.
I wonder.
Is there anything in the deck that can save him? He's out of Consecrations, out of Pyromancers. His deck is Crystology. I'm having trouble. Bloodmage Thalnos.
I wonder.
Subdue. Yep.
Those are not going to be useful cards. Here we go. The moment of truth. The season on the line.
1 in 5.
No!
I must move quickly.
And with that, I think the closing moments of this game is about to commence here. Fr0zen unable to get the 1 in 5. The Shirvala going to try and clean up the board a little bit. And a very valiant effort indeed. Fr0zen definitely hung in there way longer than I thought he could. 4 damage, 6 from the Life Drinker. He's not, he doesn't have the game won just yet, which is quite amazing to me, actually.
Now, the stylish play is Hero Power, Life Drinker, Plague of Burlocks, Roller, Bluegill Warrior. However, the responsible play is just to kill this Shivala and then you win the game.
Right. Or effectively kill it.
Yeah.
Down to just 3.
Fr0zen all the way back to 30. Fr0zen with one last Tiger to try in vain to carry him to victory. It's just not going to happen this season for Fr0zen, I'm afraid.
Another playoffs appearance and another stop at the front door. Fr0zen has done excellently during the regular season, but the playoffs, the momentum, the victory belongs to Nalguidan, who has bought a ticket to Championship Sunday for the right to play for the final Global Finals spot in BlizzCon 2019. And what a story it would be if 2 players from Latin America are the ones who get the ticket through Americas, as PNC already has locked himself up. And we'll see if Nalguidan can follow suit, which would be quite amazing.
It would, yeah. I think we talked for several years, you know, you and I have both done it, where we would celebrate, you know, the individual South American or Latin American player that would show up to a championship event for the season or whatever and say, this is fantastic. Like, they'd love having this one representative. And I think almost like maybe became slightly patronizing after a while, just to just make that point. And now they stand alone. They have very valid points where they say that they don't get the same level of high tournament exposure of tournament practice, of playing at the highest level, because there just aren't as many events available to them in their region. But now with Hearthstone Grandmasters, I'm happy to see that some South American players are taking that opportunity to just prove that they are amongst the best in the game.
even two players from the same country, right?
Yeah.
Like Argentina. It's pretty cool to see. But a lot more Hearthstone will be played throughout this weekend. So that's only one half of all the brackets that we've covered. Today we saw in America is Eddie be able to advance in the first place spot, having gotten that bye from the season record, and then was able to carry that momentum with a series-defining victory to lock in his top 4 spot.
Yeah, and I am a big fan of Eddie. I have been since I was, casting a lot of, DreamHack events and tour stops and HCT Championship events and whatever else. He is always there. He's always a solid top 8, top 4 competitor. I got the chance to interview him while I was on my brief excursion casting Americas the other week. Got to ask him, we've always kind of told this story that you've looked nervous on camera. Is that the reality? And I think, we have to be careful about that sort of thing. I've been burned on more than one occasion about saying that people have been playing nervous. But Eddie confessed that, it did take time for him to feel comfortable, being a top Hearthstone player who's going to be on camera at all times. But now this season, I don't think there's a player in Grandmasters that has looked more comfortable in the spot that they're in than Eddie has.
I mean, a player that could be contesting that is fellow #1 seed Just Saiyan, who is also playing apparently Kalento and Casey. Not possible.
Nope, gonna call a hard nope on that one. That does not look right at all.
Yeah, Bloody-Faced, Eddie's teammate, will also be playing in this bracket. Muzzy and Saiyan on the same team for Radiance, but because I believe we swapped the 4 seeds into the opposite side of the bracket, it does line up that way. Apologies, of course, for that mix-up.
Yeah, we didn't swap regions. that one didn't happen.
Kalento's American. Cool.
Yeah.
I always knew that he really supported the right region.
Yeah, and I think, that group, that actual legitimate Europe group already has enough of an identity crisis in it because it has Kalento and Tice. Before we, turn Tice into Muzzy or whatever happened in that situation, that's just getting too confusing.
Sure. Let's see if we get the proper top 4 there, as we have Saiyan, Muzzy, Purple, and Bloodyface.
Right.
That are going to be the 4 players. Purple and Bloodyface, I believe, are playing in the third, place, third place, and then Saiyan and Muzzy playing as the first and 4th seed. What a stacked bracket this is.
Exactly what I was going to say. This is a group. I think Bloodyface, I don't want to call him a newcomer because he's been around for a number of years, but in terms of high exposure, big HCT events and so on, big Blizzard first party events, he is kind of a new pretender on the scene. And I think Bloodyface is a fantastic player. I think Just Saiyan and Muzzy are the 2 kings of the Americas in terms of just their standing, the respect that they have from the other players. I think that Purple, at his peak, is the best Hearthstone player in the world. When Purple is playing his best Hearthstone, he is at a level that no one else can reach. It's just I don't necessarily always think he's consistently there.
Peak Purple is a pleasure to watch, that's for sure. 6 is the number I'm going to talk about. That's how many World Championship appearances in this group collectively.
Nice.
That's fantastic, with a 7th potentially on the line here for either Bloodyface, Purple, Muzzy, and Just Saiyan. Teammates going at it with Saiyan and Muzzy, who helped prepare, but also differed in their opinion. Some people were net decking Muzzy, some people were net decking Saiyan. Purple's been practicing a lot with Soleil. They've been posting about it. Bloodyface practices with just himself. There's all kinds of stories that we can latch onto for America's Group B for who is the 2 players going to Championship Sunday, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I absolutely am as well. I think it's rare to see a group like that because there absolutely exists players who are amongst the best players in the world in the Americas region. I just personally believe that there is a greater depth of field in Europe overall, but when you start to look at those Americas players just all in close proximity to each other, those 4 names, oh boy, that is going to be a group tomorrow.
It's going to be a really fun time, and we're going to happen all here at twitch.tv/playhearthstone. If you missed any part of this broadcast, go check out the Hearthstone Esports website, playhearthstone.com/esports, for schedules, VODs, deck lists, and a whole lot more. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. We'll see you back here tomorrow. From Fr0zen, Abar, and Sodal, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for more Hearthstone action.